He merely closed his eyes during prayer, never expecting the student behind him to spit all over him. Even after that, the boy was not satisfied and forced him into a corner, deliberately making him the target of several people relieving themselves to vent their anger. Yet in the face of such blatant humiliation, he does not get angry and instead chooses to endure it in silence. That is because this is Southern Africa in 1930, and he happens to have British blood flowing through his veins. At that time, racial discrimination and drought were growing more severe than ever before. 3 weeks after his father was trampled to death by a rogue elephant, P.K. is born amid crying. In order to constantly remember her late husband, his mother gives P.K. the same name. Unlike his mother, who has pure British heritage and a deep love for books and music, what the boy experiences most while growing up is the fragrance of jacaranda blossoms and the calls of weaver birds. He is raised on the milk of a black nanny, and from birth he forms an inseparable friendship with her son Tonderai. The two grow up playing, laughing, and practicing the piano together, experiencing the cultural differences between Britain and South Africa. He believes this peaceful life will continue as P.K. grows up. But one day, a plague suddenly breaks out on the quiet farm, and the cattle become infected one after another and die. All farm affairs were previously managed by his father, so his mother never learned anything about disease prevention. The plague spreads with terrifying speed, causing heavy losses to the farm, and his mother collapses from exhaustion and illness, so that his mother can recover in peace. P.K. has no choice but to go to a boarding school. When they part, his mother gives him a bracelet, the token of love she once shared with his father. Although the bracelet is not made of diamonds or gold, P.K. believes it is more precious than anything else. Then, in the reluctant embraces of his mother and nanny, he suppresses the urge to cry and slowly leaves home, because the family's finances are no longer what they once were. The boarding school P.K. attends is the oldest among the 2 white tribes in Africa, and this school is founded by the Boers. The Boers are today known as Afrikaners, referring to a mixed ethnic group formed by the descendants of white immigrants from Germany, France, and the Netherlands who settled in South Africa. The Boers harbor hostility toward local Africans and toward the British, with whom they have long-standing grudges. As a result, P.K., who has British ancestry, is frequently met with hatred and abuse at school, and all the boy can do is endure and remain silent. He believes that if he can just hold on a little longer, his mother will recover and come take him home. But what arrives instead is devastating news. As the small wooden pit buries all hope, the boy finally realizes one thing, that he has become an orphan with no parents left, because his only remaining relative, his grandfather, lives far away in the Congo. After much consideration, P.K. can only return once again to the boarding school. Thinking of the classmates who once bullied him, he feels fear creeping into his heart. So he tells his nanny everything he has been through. The nanny quickly seeks out a famous witch doctor. After a mysterious ritual, the witch doctor gives P.K. a rooster, saying it is the embodiment of great courage and will protect him in the future. Perhaps the rooster truly carries some kind of magic, because after P.K. returns to the boarding school, the late-night harassment from other students noticeably decreases. However, this life lasts for only 1 month. Soon, the Second World War breaks out. Although the main battlefields are in Europe, South Africa is also thrown into great turmoil. The main instigator of this war, Hitler, vows to crush Great Britain and drive all British people out of South Africa. This is a disaster for the British and for P.K., but for the Boers, who have long desired this outcome, it is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. So the older boys who once bullied P.K. begin to stir again, their malicious intentions returning. They slap the innocent and pitiful P.K., then smear his blood onto their own arms where they have carved Nazi symbols. Not only that, the older boys set up their own mock court and kill the rooster that once protected P.K. Furious, P.K. fights back, only to be captured and hung up in return. If the headmaster had not appeared in time to stop them, this farce would have been enough to take P.K.'s life. After his father's accidental death and his mother's passing, and with the nanny returning to her hometown with her son, it seems as if P.K. has been abandoned by the entire world. Fortunately, not long after the boarding school incident, his grandfather who lives in the Congo returns to South Africa, allowing P.K. to move in with him. But since the two have never lived together before, even though he is far from his former life of abuse, P.K.'s days are still filled with loneliness. He has no friends his own age to play with, and the only person he can truly talk to is his grandfather's German friend, Doc. The man is an interesting composer who loves playing the piano and collecting cacti. and even names his donkey Beethoven. The grandfather is delighted that his grandson forms a bond with his old friend. From that day on, Doc becomes P.K.'s teacher. Their classroom is the vast African savanna. Their textbooks are the animals encountered along migration routes. And knowledge enters P.K.'s mind in many different forms. They study from sunrise to sunset each day. And as his experience and perspective grow, the birds of loneliness that once circled his heart slowly fly away without looking back. But just as P.K. is fully immersed in learning, his life changes once again. British officers suddenly arrive at the Cactus Garden, accusing Doc of failing to register as a foreign resident and ordering him to be taken to prison to await trial until the war between Britain and Germany ends. A firm believer in peace, Doc does not resist and chooses to enter prison to face whatever fate awaits him. Although the British treat Doc as an enemy, the Boer prison authorities who detain him are surprisingly polite. The warden deeply admires Doc's cultured demeanor. Not only does he receive special care while awaiting trial, the warden even arranges for Doc's piano and cacti to be transported into the prison. One day in prison, after P.K. finishes his exams, Doc hears that he has passed all his subjects but is not satisfied, because in his eyes, P.K. is capable of doing far better. The boy then explains that performing too well at school would invite jealousy and violent retaliation. So Doc takes P.K. to the boxing ring and asks a black boxer named Pete to teach him some fighting skills. Boxing matches are often held in Boer prisons, not to promote sportsmanship. They exist to drain the prisoner's strength so they have no energy left to cause trouble. From that day on, the 55-year-old black man Pete becomes P.K.'s second teacher. Pete often says that as long as you use your mind and your heart well, you can master the secret of defeating the strong with the small. These words become his sincere guidance to P.K. during their training sessions. As seasons change and years pass, with everything he learns, P.K. gradually grows into a teenager. He continues planting cacti while learning piano and practicing boxing. Although he never says it aloud, deep inside he longs for the end of the Second World War, because only when peace is achieved can racial discrimination truly be eliminated. Life in prison is harsh for Pete, mainly because of his black heritage and skin color. Even though Doc tries to intervene, the guards who deeply despise black people repeatedly target Pete, even using their feet to scoop up waste meant for fertilizer and forcing him to eat it. When you live under someone else's roof, you have no choice but to bow your head. Especially as a prisoner, Pete has no right to resist and can only bend down and open his mouth. Yet even after being humiliated to the lowest point, he is still subjected to vicious curses.
You can't hide from me forever, Cover. Your day will come, and it'll be as black as your bloody soul. I promise you.
Doc is disgusted by the guard's behavior and wants to find a way to change the situation. So when the warden tells Doc that a district official will visit soon, an idea suddenly forms in his mind. The warden plans to organize a musical welcome event. And as a pianist, Doc becomes the obvious choice. So while he focuses on composing the music, the task of writing the lyrics is handed over to P.K. He wants all the prisoners to use their voices to convey the injustice they have suffered. Although a few minor setbacks occur along the way, thanks to P.K.'s relentless efforts, a carefully planned concert is finally presented perfectly before the district commissioner. P.K. demonstrates remarkable conducting talent, allowing prisoners from rival tribes to set aside their differences for the first time and stand on the same side. Black people are musicians gifted by nature, their voices as vast as the African plains, filled with piercing power and emotional force, and like ancient wisdom hidden deep in the jungle, carrying the primal strength and life passion of the African people. The concert has been going on for quite some time, yet Pete has still not appeared. It turns out he has been stopped by the guard who previously abused him. Sensing that the lyrics sung by the black prisoners are far from simple, the guard beats Pete with a stick, trying to force the meaning out of him. At this moment, the concert reaches its climax. When P.K. notices the guard standing behind him with crossed arms, he suddenly realizes something is wrong. Sure enough, when he finds Pete, the man is already lying on the ground, barely clinging to life. The bond between them has long gone beyond that of teacher and student, becoming more like a friendship divided by age. Seeing Pete's face covered in blood, P.K. knows he is about to lose this friend. He desperately begs him not to leave, but the guard's blows were meant to kill, and in the end, Pete cannot be saved. Time passes to 1948, and after the war ends, Doc returns to Germany. 18-year-old P.K. is once again left alone. Fortunately, he excels academically and earns his teacher's admiration. who even help him apply to study abroad at Oxford University, listing P.K. and another student as candidates and thoughtfully applying for government funding on his behalf. Boxing championships are often held between schools, and with his experience, P.K. naturally becomes the favorite among his classmates, because the girl he likes is watching from the sidelines. P.K. performs even better than usual and wins the match without any suspense. Even while celebrating, his eyes never leave the girl. Her name is Maria, the daughter of Professor Daniel Prof. Murray. If it were anyone else, P.K. might still have a chance, but unfortunately this man is Prof. Murray. As an intellectual favored by those in power, Prof. Murray despises British people more than anything, so for P.K. to pursue Maria, the difficulty alone is enough to make anyone hesitate. But P.K. is not afraid of challenges, so under the cover of night, he sneaks over the wall of her school and finally meets the girl he longs for. Although Maria knows her father's temper very well, she still agrees to the date, simply because she has also fallen for P.K. Saturday morning arrives quickly, and P.K. gathers his courage and knocks on the Murray family's door. Although he has done some research beforehand, when he actually meets Prof. Murray, he is still shocked by the man's attitude. Prof. Murray's uncle was killed by British people, so racial prejudice combined with family hatred makes his hostility toward the British extremely intense. P.K. explains that he grew up in South Africa and considers himself South African, but in Prof. Murray's eyes, it makes no difference, because no matter where P.K. grows up, the blood flowing through his veins is still British, so no matter how P.K. tries to reason with him, Prof. Murray refuses to allow him to see his daughter, let alone approve of their relationship. After being rejected, P.K. and his classmates head to an underground boxing venue. Although this is Boer territory, the owner secretly runs boxing matches between fighters of different races. In his view, once you step into the ring, everyone deserves equal treatment. The owner introduces P.K. and his classmate to another organizer of illegal boxing matches. Hearing that P.K. is a formidable boxer, the man wants to arrange a match between P.K. and one of his fighters. Considering that matches between black and white fighters are illegal, P.K. initially refuses. Just as he is about to leave with his classmate, he sees the girl coming to find him. As the three prepare to go somewhere to relax, the black organizer from earlier chases after them and tells an ancient South African rainmaking myth, which finally shakes P.K.'s resolve. Seeing that P.K. is still hesitant, the black fighter who does not want to participate steps forward. He does not believe in any rainmaking myths and directly challenges P.K. A young man cannot endure provocation, especially in front of the girl he likes, so P.K. decisively accepts the match. However, his secret meetings with Maria still anger Prof. Murray. The man's stance remains unchanged. He absolutely refuses to let a British man become his son-in-law, so he instructs the police to begin investigating P.K. and report anything unusual immediately. Unaware that he has become a target, P.K. sneaks into a restricted area to prepare for the match. Unlike all his previous fights, this ring is set up in an open square. There is no prize money either, as both sides seem to be fighting solely to prove themselves. At the referee's signal, P.K. and his opponent quickly become entangled in a fierce fight. Although he is knocked down several times because he cannot find his opponent's weakness at first, relying on the experience he has accumulated over the years, P.K. ultimately wins the match. Yet the cheers he imagined never come, replaced instead by endless silence. It is not until the opponent raises P.K.'s hand and calls him the Rainmaker that the black spectators finally lift their hands and cheer. That night changes the way P.K. thinks, and it also deepens the bond between him and Maria. Neither of them believes in so-called racial discrimination, and both long to see a world where everyone is treated equally. As a result, two hearts that already share mutual affection slowly draw closer through conversation. However, no matter how cautious P.K. is, he is still discovered by the police arranged by Prof. Murray while climbing over the wall to leave. In the days that follow, P.K. is frequently seen in the restricted areas where black people live. He becomes friends with his former opponent Duma, and the two run together to train their bodies. One day while running along the road, Duma suddenly suggests that P.K. start a school to teach people in the restricted area how to read and write English. But with more than 1 million black people living there, P.K. says it is something he simply cannot do. Duma then brings up the Rainmaker myth again, which leaves the troubled P.K. feeling weary, and the two immediately argue. Duma's words trigger deep reflection in P.K. because he himself no longer knows what he truly believes. At that moment, he recalls what Doc once told him, that answers to any problem can be found in nature. So P.K. rows a small boat into the natural world. When he sees a mighty waterfall still surging forward after plunging from great heights, he suddenly finds his answer. If such a magnificent waterfall is formed by countless individual drops of water, then perhaps he can start by teaching just a few people. The headmaster admires P.K.'s idea and takes the risk of providing a study room. However, because classes are held on weekends, P.K. can no longer accompany Maria to dances, leading to their first argument since meeting. Prof. Murray has already chosen a future son-in-law and even announces at a dinner between the families that he is about to enter the cabinet. Hearing her father promote plans of segregation, Maria, who has long been dissatisfied, finally explodes.
Shouldn't apply to anyone, I think.
Maria, when you know nothing about a subject, it's best to say nothing.
I know what I've read. I know what I've seen.
When you're not at school, you will be confined to this house. You will no longer be allowed outside unaccompanied. You are forbidden to ever see him again, Maria. Now excuse yourself. You will learn there's a price to pay for disobeying me.
If this is the price for seeing an English boy, what's the price for seeing a Jewish one?
I won't tolerate this, Maria! Go to your room!
As Maria storms out of the house in anger, P.K. begins his first lesson at school. It turns out that he is not only an excellent conductor, but also a capable teacher. Unfortunately, before he can even finish teaching the alphabet, the police arrive at the headmaster's office and summon P.K. and his students for questioning. To his shock, one of the officers is the same older boy who once bullied him at boarding school. Just like that, after only a few days, the classes are forced to shut down under pressure from authority. Fortunately, bad news and good news arrive together. P.K. and his companions are admitted to Oxford University. Eager to share the news with the one he loves, P.K. climbs into Maria's room that very night and asks her to go to England with him. Unexpectedly, she is about to be sent away to live with her aunt. So P.K. promises that after 1 month, once he is settled in England, he will come back to take her with him. At the same time, he gives Maria the love token of his parents as a symbol of their commitment. During this period, the older boy who has now become a police officer starts harassing people around P.K. and Duma is injured, losing one eye. But fate seems unwilling to stop there and reshuffles the cards with even harsher trials. Because the school no longer provides a study room, P.K. and the others move their classroom into a church. Meanwhile, Maria sneaks out from home to help P.K. teach black people to read and write English. They are still discovered by the police who have been monitoring the situation, and the two sides ignite instantly like sparks meeting explosives. Maria breaks free and tries to run toward P.K., only to see someone behind her preparing to strike. As the baton swings down with force, Maria falls to the ground and loses her life. At the funeral, Prof. Murray is overwhelmed with grief, yet he places all the blame on P.K., grabbing a shovel and seeking a life for a life. At that moment, music drifts in from the distance. Black people arrive to pay their respects, simply to thank Maria for what she once did. Maria's death deals P.K. a devastating blow. He no longer has the heart to continue fighting against the forces of discrimination. He goes to find Duma to say goodbye, only to discover that a school has already opened in the restricted area. Hearing that Duma plans to open English literacy classes elsewhere to spread knowledge, the wavering heart of P.K. finally makes its decision. He does not want Maria's sacrifice to be in vain, so he chooses a hopeful future over Oxford University. He believes that after enduring so much suffering, his life will finally become whole. But that very night, the police suddenly storm into the restricted area again, preparing to arrest P.K. on charges of violating the law. Bullets ruthlessly strike black bodies, as if their lives are worth no more than grass. Seeing the older boy who once bullied him remain unchanged and continue his cruelty, P.K. finally reaches his breaking point and fights back. In the end, through the combined efforts of him and Duma, the man pays the price for his actions. When the restricted area finally returns to calm, thick smoke from raging fires has already risen into the sky. At the same time, a flame of hope ignites within P.K.'s heart. He and Duma pack their belongings and set off on a journey that will take a lifetime to complete. Both P.K. and Duma know how difficult the road ahead will be, yet they still treat the fight against racial discrimination as just another ordinary boxing match, because they understand that no matter how dangerous the path is, they must take the risk, as it concerns the survival of their people. And now, P.K. is no longer afraid of anything, because he will find direction against the wind, become a seabird standing firm in the storm. and continue running forward with tears in his eyes as a lone star. I am a film enthusiast. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.